Brachot habaot, ladies, and welcome to another edition of Torah Anytime. I hope that you had a good week and a wonderful Shabbat. We have a lot of work to do. This past Shabbat, we read Parshat Tavo, which contains numerous curses, lo alenu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu warned the Jewish people about over 3,000 years ago in the Midbar. We see many of these warnings coming to life with the recent events in the news. Many of us are wondering what the message behind all of these consecutive natural disasters that have been occurring. What's the message behind these disasters? While many of us understand the implication from Shamayim and wish to change this terrible decree. And I believe that part of the answer, since a lot of ladies are writing in and they're asking what's going on, what do you think Hashem is trying to tell us, getting all these kinds of pictures of, for example, of Florida in the shape of a shofar, etc., etc. I believe that part of the answer lies in this past week's parasha, and one lesson we could draw out from it, if not two, possibly two. There's many lessons, but I want to focus on these two. Maybe can spare us from the harsh decrees that have befallen us prior to Rosh Hashanah. We'll begin with the Gemara in Megillah that teaches us that Ezra, alav shalom, instituted that Bnei Israel should read the curses contained in Parashat Bechukotai before Chag HaShavuot, and the curses that are contained in Parashat Tavo, which was this past week's parasha, should be read before Rosh Hashanah. Why is that? The Tiferet Shlomo alav shalom explains that even if a harsh judgment had been rendered against Klal Yisrael, chaz v'shalom, by reading this past week's parasha, it's considered as if we actually received the punishment. And as a result of reading the psukim, we're fulfilling the statement of Tichle Shana V'Keleloteha, which means let the past year of, and it's all its curses, be done with, and it should be counted on last year's cheshbon, not this year. That means that as we read Parashat Tavo, it's important that each and every one of us have the attitude of yirah, of awe and fear of Hashem. The kavanah we should have when we're reading the tochachot, all those warnings in the Torah, is that it should be considered as if we've already experienced our due punishment, because there's so much suffering in Am Yisrael. And by reading that and having this in mind, in this way we could put this year's curses behind us and prepare to begin a new year with a clean new slate. Therefore, ladies, let's examine the tochachot through the eyes of some of our chachamim and see what we could do to make this year be one that's filled with berachot and yeshuot. In Parashat Tavo, we find 98 curses, lo alenu, that were told to Moshe Rabbeinu by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and then transmitted to Am Yisrael through Moshe Rabbeinu. And interestingly, among these 98 curses, we don't find any words of consolation, which is very frightening if you think about it. So the Radvaz, alav shalom, a great commentary, addresses this important observation that we don't have any consolation, and he points out that the Zohar HaKadosh says that many of the psukim that refer to the warnings, to the tochacha in Parashat Tavo, actually contain the name of Hashem, Havaya, Yud, Hey, a Vav, and then another Hey, that name defines God's divine mercy. And the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name of divine mercy is used in the psukim is itself a sign of consolation. Well, let's take a look. How many times does Moshe Rabbeinu mention HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name of Rachamim in the Psukim of Tochacha? The Holy Baal HaTurim, alav shalom, says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu's name appears 26 times, which is interesting since the name of divine mercy, Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Hei, is equal to 26 in Gematria. So it's very interesting. Now, the Chida Alav Shalom, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, in his Sefer Yosef Tehilot, he presents us with an incredible fact. He writes that in the section of Tochachot in Parashat Tavo, the name Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Hei, which is equal to 26, like we said, appears 26 times. We also said that. And 26 times 26 equals 676. 676, he says, is the same numerical value as the word Ra'ot. Ra'ot means misfortunes, bad things. In other words, the 26 times that the name Yud Hey, Vav, and Hey is mentioned is actually intended to counteract the Ra'ot, the misfortunes and the curses that are mentioned in the Tochachot of Parashat Tavo. It's an amazing thing. For this reason, by the way, Chachamim instituted the custom, the minhag, of reciting the 27th perek of Tehillim, LeDavid Hashem Ori V'Yish'i. And it was instituted that we should recite this perek twice a day from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Shmini Atzeret. Why do we do this? In the holy Ari Kadosh's Sidur, Alav Shalom, it says that reciting this Mizmor of Tehillim twice a day, in the morning, once in the morning, and then once at night, during the period between Chodesh Elul and Shmini Atzeret, actually nullifies all the harsh decrees and all the evil decrees, and it ensures that a person is going to have a pleasant year. Now, how is that achieved? The Ari Kadosh explains that this perek of Tehillim contains 13 mentions of the name Yud Hey, Vav, and Hey, which corresponds to the Yud Gimel Midot of Rachamim, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's 13 attributes of mercy, which are revealed from the beginning of the month of Elul. So reciting this perek of Tehillim, in which the name of Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Hei, is mentioned 13 times, twice a day, gives us a total of 26 times where we mention the name Havaya. Therefore, reciting this Mizmor twice a day also has the power to cancel out all the evil decrees, all the Ra'ot that are so clearly depicted in Parashat Tavo. Now, I want to point out that when the Balaturim says that the name Havaya appears 26 times in the Tochachot of Parashat Tavo, he's actually not counting the last pasuk in which the name of Hashem appears. He has his reasons why he doesn't count the name of Hashem, the 27th time. But according to the Rokeach, Alav Shalom, who was one of the Ba'alei HaTosafot, he says that we have to count the last pasuk as part of the Tochachot. And since the name of Hashem appears in that last pasuk also, it turns out that according to the Rokeach, the divine name of mercy, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, actually is mentioned 27 times in the Tochachot. Now, what does this mean for our shiur today? Whether it's 26 times that it appears or 27 times, the message is very clear. But I want to focus on why Moshe Rabbeinu chose to mention the name Yud Kei Vav Hei 27 times, according to the Rokeach, in the Tochachot that he gave over to Am Yisrael, and what is the message that I want to impart to you now in these troubling times. In the Sefer Pri Etz Chaim, the Ari Kadosh says the following. I'm going to read you the Lashon. Shabbat Gematria Zach Havayot Pshutot, which means that the number 27, Zach is 27, the number 27 times 26, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's divine name of mercy, Yud Kei Vav Kei, is equal to 702. 26 times 27 is 702, which he says is the same gematria as the word Shabbat. Shabbat is also 702. And he adds that this must be the reason that Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned the Kadosh Baruch Hu's name 27 times in the Tochachot, because it's to teach us that the Kedusha of Shabbat has the power to save us from all of these curses. After all, it does say in Sefer Bereshit, Vayevarech Elokim et Yom HaShavi'i Vayikadesh Oto. HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed the seventh day and he sanctified that day. So ladies, Shabbat is the source of all blessings in the world. The Zohar Kadosh tells us that all the barachot from above, from the Shamayim and from below, they all depend on the seventh day of the week, which is Shabbat. Therefore, the power of Shabbat has the power to nullify all the curses while bestowing blessings upon the entire world, especially upon Am Yisrael. Now, ladies, if you read the Tochachot in Parashat Tavo, you'll notice that in the middle of all the warnings, you discover the reason for all the ra'ot, for all the misfortunes that plague the world and Am Yisrael. Smack in the middle of all the warnings, the pasuk says, "Tachat asher lo avadeta et Hashem Elokecha besimcha v'tuv levav merov kol." As a result of not serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy and gladness of the heart when everything was abundant. What does this mean? The Midrash explains that not serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy is referring to the delight of Shabbat, to Oneg Shabbat. We say, V'karat la Shabbat Oneg. We're told to call the Shabbat Oneg. So we're told because we didn't serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Oneg of Shabbat, we have a problem. We have problems. Not only that, but interestingly, the pasuk in Parashat Tavo, this pasuk says, Tachat asher, as a result of. Notice the word asher. Let's break down the three letters, the aleph, the shin, and the resh. Asher. The letter in the Hebrew alphabet that comes after the letter aleph in the word asher is the letter bet, right? The letter that comes after the letter shin in the word asher is the letter taf. And the letter that comes after the letter resh in the word asher is the letter shin. So it turns out that the word asher forms a new word that's created. What's the new word? Shabbat. Tachat asher means that it could very well be that the reason that these misfortunes came upon you is because you're not serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with joy on Shabbat Kodesh. You're not treating the Shabbat with the proper respect that it deserves. Chachamim tell us that in the zchut of keeping the Shabbat the proper way, k'ilchata, with simcha, we're able to extend its kedusha and bracha to the remaining 6 days of the week. But if we mistreat the Shabbat, then it could very well be that we're leaving the remaining 6 days of the week devoid of bracha. And when there's no bracha, what fills its place? Klala, curses, lo alenu. I want to take this a step further. The holy Magen Avraham alav shalom writes that it's actually a good thing to extend the kedusha of Shabbat by bringing it in 2 hours earlier. Don't get all like uptight now and say, oh my God, I barely make it to the Shabbat. Listen to the concept. Now, on the other side of the coin, we have the holy Siduro Shel Shabbat, alav shalom. He writes that many people have the minhag of adding an hour to the end of Shabbat in order to extend the Kedusha of Shabbat towards the end of Shabbat. So according to these two guidelines, between the 2-hour extension of Shabbat, where we're ushering in the Shabbat earlier, and the 1-hour extension at the end of the Shabbat, where we extend the Shabbat another hour, it turns out that according to these two guidelines, The 24-hour day of Shabbat turns into a 27-hour Shabbat day, since we just added 3 hours, 2 in the beginning of Shabbat and 1 at the end of Shabbat. Ladies, that idea is alluded to in the word Shabbat itself, which has the numerical value of 702, which is 27, that's 27 hours, times Yud Kei Vav Kei, times 26, the name of Hashem. Meaning that the name of Hashem that represents divine mercy, which is equal to 26, illuminates that 24-hour day of Shabbat that we've extended. Ladies, I want to learn with you a very interesting teaching of the holy Baal Megaleh Amukot Alav Shalom that discusses the Brit Ben HaBetarim, the covenant of the parts. The Brit Ben HaBetarim was a covenant made by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Avraham Avinu Alav Shalom. And the pasuk in Sefer Bereshit says the following. It says, Vayikach lo et kol ele vayivater otam batavech. He took all of these and he split them in the center. What is the mystical meaning behind this pasuk? And what does that have to do with everything we've been discussing? Chachamim teach us that there are 70 ministering angels in Shamayim that were split into 2 groups. 35 are on the left side of Kedusha. And those 35 are led by the Samach Mem, that's short for his real name, which is the Satan. The Satan himself is the head of those 35 ministering angels on the left side of Kedusha. And the Satan himself is the ministering angel of Esav and all of Esav's descendants. Opposite these 35 angels are another 35 angels, and those angels are situated on the right side of Kedusha. Those 35 angels are led by a malach named Rahav, spelled Resh Hey Bet. And he's the ministering angel of Ishmael and all of his descendants. Now, these 70 ministering angels are actually represented in the word Ele, which is mentioned in the pasuk that I just quoted you. Vayikach lo et kol ele. How are these ministering angels represented in the word Ele? Because the letters Lamed Hey in the word Ele is equal to 35. And those 35 malachim are in charge of the 35 nations of the world on the right side of Kedusha. And their leader is represented by the letter Aleph in the word Ele. Aleph, Lamed, Hey. So they have one leader and 35 angels underneath him. So we on the right side, we have the same on the left side. So we have 35 nations with 35 angels that manage them, with their one overseeing angel, Ele, the one angel overseeing the 35. And opposite those 35 nations, we have another 35 nations on the left side of Kedusha with their 35 angels and their overseeing leading angel. This is what's alluded to in the pasuk that I quoted you, ladies. Vayikach et kol ele. And he took the 2 sets of Ele, comprising of the 70 nations and their leaders, vayevater otam batavech. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu split them into 2 groups, into 2 halves, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu placed Bnei Yisrael between these 2 groups. And that's alluded to, by the way, in the pasuk of Tehillim that we recite every day. We say, Ele barechev ve'ele basusim, right? That's referring to the 2 sets of Ele who represent the 70 nations of the world. These nations oppose each other. Ele barechev ve'ele basusim. They have different ideologies, they have different philosophies, different lifestyles. Va'anachnu, we're in the center. Va'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu naskir. That pasuk refers to Klal Yisrael. Now, the Baal Megaleh Amukot adds an amazing chidush. An amazing insight. He says that this division between the nations explains why Am Yisrael's day of rest falls out on Shabbat Kodesh. Ladies, this is amazing if you think about it. In contrast to us, the Muslims who are the descendants of Ishmael, they celebrate their Shabbat on a Friday. Now, if you look at the calendar, on the calendar, Friday is to the right of Shabbat Kodesh. Whereas the majority of the Christian world, the Christians who are the descendants of Esav, they celebrate Shabbat on Sunday, which is to the left of Shabbat Kodesh. So where does that leave Am Yisrael? We occupy the central position. We've got Friday on the right, we've got Sunday on the left, and we're smack in the center. Chachamim explain that the center point of any given thing bears tremendous chashivut, tremendous importance, tremendous greatness. Based on this idea, the holy Bnei Yissaschar alav shalom points out that the Kedusha of Shabbat, which is located in the center between the other nations' Shabbatot, the fact that our Shabbat is situated in the center between the Shabbatot of the other nations, Ishmael and Esav, is a siman that Shabbat nullifies the negative forces of Ishmael to our right and Esav to our left. That's an amazing thing. Not only that, but it also nullifies the powers of all the 70 nations that are under the flags of Ishmael and Esav. Says the Bnei Yissaschar, if Am Yisrael would keep the Shabbat holy and sanctify the day as it deserves, no nation would ever be able to rule over us. And through the power of Shabbat, we would nullify the negative forces of Esav and Ishmael, who are situated to the left and right of Shabbat Kodesh. Do you hear this, ladies? Therefore, now listen to the chidush, listen very carefully now. Therefore, by extending the Kedusha of Shabbat at the onset of Shabbat, whereby we usher in the Shabbat earlier on Friday, right? That's technically considered the domain of Ishmael. And when we extend the Shabbat by adding more time to the end of Shabbat, that's technically the domain of Esav. And when we extend the Shabbat to the right and to the left, we are subduing the negative forces to our right and to our left. We're not only subduing Ishmael and Esav, but all the nations that are under their leadership, as well as their ministering angels, are subdued. Could you imagine that, ladies? This is the koach of Shabbat. This is one of the items that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to impress upon us when he gave us the tochachot, the warnings. He wanted to teach us that by keeping the Shabbat holy, and by extending the Shabbat before the Shabbat and after the Shabbat, we negate the negative forces of Esav and Ishmael, who are the leaders of the 70 nations of the world. And in the process of doing so, we're also nullifying all the misfortunes, all the ra'ot that are depicted in the tochachot of Parashat Tavo, which obviously resulted from all the negative influences of Ishmael and Esav. Ladies, what does this all mean practically for us amid these troubling times of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, earthquakes? Well, what does it mean? Nature itself is waking up and calling out in a rage to us all. And it's doing so before Rosh Hashanah. And it's prompting us to do teshuvah. In the word Shabbat is the word teshuv, which means return. You got to return from your ways. Many of us have unfortunately degraded the Shabbat by not keeping it pure. We discuss mundane items on Shabbat. Some of us engage in activities that are considered chol. Unfortunately, there are many of us that are now mechalele Shabbat. Many of us don't look forward to the Shabbat anymore, and many people count down the minutes as it ends, because we can't wait to get back to our cell phones, to all the emails, to the chats and texts, or whatever else occupies our material life. Some of us dress inappropriately on Shabbat. Some of us go to shul on Shabbat just to socialize. Ladies, we need to stop treating the Shabbat queen, the Shabbat HaMalka, in such a lowly fashion, in such a lowly manner, such a disgraceful way. And we need to start treating her in the way that she deserves to be treated. We have to give kavod to the Shabbat HaMalka. So my suggestion to us all, especially amid these troubling times, everybody's writing into me, what should we do? What should we do? One of the things that I want to suggest is that we should all take upon ourselves to start bringing in the Shabbat a little earlier. Try to be ready for Shabbat way before the Zman. Try. And let's try not to throw Shabbat out on its ear as the conclusion of Shabbat draws near. Let's make an effort to extend the Shabbat as much as we can so that we see brachot ve'yeshuot. So try to bring in the Shabbat a little earlier than planned. Try to be ready for Shabbat earlier. Light your candles benachat ruach. Make sure your table is set before Shabbat. Try to take care of things before the Shabbat so that you have time before to bring in the Shabbat benachat, so that you extend the time to bring bracha. Same thing at the end of Shabbat. Don't rush to finish the Shabbat, to end the Shabbat. Don't rush. That's the first suggestion I have. Start keeping the Shabbat and treating it the right way and give it the kavod that it deserves. The second topic of discussion that I think is affecting world events in this catastrophic manner is our tzniut, or better yet, our lack of tzniut. It's not a secret, ladies, and we all know, and we have to admit, that the tzniut levels of the Benot Melech, of so many Nashim Tzadkaniyot, has descended into a dark place, that even the children of Esav and Ishmael look upon us and they wonder, what happened to these Jewish people? What happened to them? Ladies, Chachamim tell us that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created Chava, very interestingly, he gathered her hair and held on to it, and he said to her, Hey Tznuah, be modest, be modest. Very interesting that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reins the woman in by her hair and commands her to be modest. That's not a siman. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Chava, the mother of all future generations of mothers, of Jewish women, I created you to be beautiful and unique. I adorned you with 24 precious jewels. For what purpose? So that you should find favor in and be loved by your husband, not by everybody else. I bestowed upon you a gift. It's the gift of modesty, of tzniut. This gift contains an enormous koach, a tremendous power. Hashem says, please use it well and guard it according to my wishes. Your tzniut has the power to turn that which is tameh into something that is tahor. You could transform the deep darkness into an awe-inspiring light with your tzniut. And you have the ability to modify the strict judgments and turn them into zechuyot. You have the power to redeem the entire world through your tzniut. Ladies, do you hear this? But that can only happen if you understand the greatness of the zchut that is in your possession. You have to understand your inner strength as a woman in Am Yisrael. HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided you with tools to guard your beauty, a beauty that's often vain and false. What does Shlomo HaMelech Alav Shalom tells us, Sheker achen vehevel hayofi. As a Jewish woman, you're supposed to protect your modesty from being dishonored and shamed. Don't forget that the glory and honor of a Bat Melech is her inner beauty and grace. Kol kvuda Bat Melech penima. It's meant to be hidden. It's meant to be inside of you. Hashem doesn't want you to use your powers of femininity as a means to externalize and show off your beauty to the entire world, as a means of attracting another woman's husband, or God forbid, disturbing that man's davening with images that are conjured up in his mind of you and not his wife. HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't create you beautiful so that you could trample upon that beauty and that kedusha by dressing in ways that don't define your essence and what you represent and who you represent. What you represent is Yahadut, Judaism. And who you represent is the Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the King of all kings. And when you do this, when you defile HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory, you don't realize that you could mistakenly ruin HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plan, and you could chaz v'shalom bring destruction upon the world. We see this throughout biblical history. Whenever there was a breach in tzniut, no matter what that breach was, whenever there was a defilement of modesty, of tzniut, there was destruction, there was makot, there was plagues, there was illness. The nations of the world were able to attack us. Ladies, you don't think it's time that you were proud to look like a Jewish princess? You don't think it's time to be proud of that? And when I say a Jewish princess, I don't mean a Princess Diana or Princess Kate. Because it seems to me, and you tell me why. Why does it seem as though so many women are doing whatever they could to appear anything else but Jewish? It's almost as if the message that they're trying to display is, as secular as I could look, that's how I want to look. I don't want to look Jewish. Why? Why? You think looking Jewish isn't beautiful? Nobody's telling you to wear a sack of potatoes or look like the Wicked Witch of the West. You could look presentable and you could be modest. You could be attractive but not attracting. And these days, I can't even use the word attracting anymore. Better use the word provocative. Why be provocative? Why? This is not a Jewish woman. Why invite trouble? Why create enormous nisyonot for the other side? Why make another woman jealous that her husband is looking at you and not at her? Did you ever think about that? And to some married women out there, I'm talking to you woman to woman now, don't be offended. We're talking openly now. I'm Moroccan. I talk open to everybody. Some married women out there, I'm talking to you. And I'm telling you that you have to be very careful, because you're giving the appearance that you're unattached, that you're single when you're married. Explain to me why you need those long flowing shaitels that make you look like a single girl, unattached, where a man sees you from far and he can't tell if you're married. The halakha says that a single girl with hair below her shoulders isn't allowed to go into the Reshut Harabim, into the public domain, if she doesn't gather her hair or cut her hair short. And you, who are married, you give yourself the permission to walk out into the Reshut Harabim with long shaitels, and you don't even gather your shaitel? I mean, think about it. If a single girl has to keep her hair short or gather it if she's going out into the public domain, what does that tell you about your obligation as a married woman? Did you ever think about that? You're attracting the shchanim. You're creating a fallacy. You're creating an image of something that isn't true, that's false. You're a married woman. You're not a single woman. You're supposed to look married. Tell me, how come you have to wear 6-inch heels, short, tight skirts, tight tops that display your erva? Explain to me how you honor yourself, let alone the man that you married, let alone the ketubah that you accepted on the night of that wedding, let alone the ring that you wear on that finger. How do you honor that? Tell me, I'm talking to you openly now, woman to woman. Ladies, this wasn't the reason why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created you to be beautiful. That wasn't why He adorned you with 24 precious jewels of tzniut and chokhmah, binah yetera. That's not why He did that. Hashem pleads with the woman and He says, your tzniut, that's your yofi, that's your beauty. To be modest is your duty and your zechut. Because only you are bestowed with the crown of modesty, and it's your responsibility to use this tremendous power to protect your children, to protect your husband, and the extended family of Am Yisrael and the entire world, to bring good things upon us. Chachamim tell us that in the zechut of a woman's modesty, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in our midst. In this zechut, He guards and protects us. You have the ability to bring so much kedusha, so much bracha and yeshua to this world, to Am Yisrael. Please, ladies, please understand the great importance of your modesty, of your tzniut. So if you want to know what you can do to change the decrees, keep Shabbat the way you're supposed to, and start dressing in a refined and dignified manner that personifies the essence of who you are and what you represent. I want to end by telling you a story about the power of tzniut and how much a person is willing to give up, that I hope will inspire you, ladies. As women, we have to be very careful when it concerns tzniut. Not only that, but in the previous parasha, we're told that HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem mithalech bekerev machanecha le'atzilcha ve'latet oivecha lefanecha, which means Hashem is walking among our camp and our communities in order to save us from the enemy. Therefore, v'haya machanecha kadosh, your camp should be holy. If there's one thing we should strive to take upon ourselves this year, it's tzniut. Because it's a mitzvah that belongs to us women, and we've been recognized for it throughout the history. Many of our ancestors have died to uphold it, like the tzadikah, Sulika, alaiha shalom, from Morocco. The story of Sulika is documented in a few sfarim, but mainly it's documented in a sefer called Malchei Rabbanan, which is an anthology of the lives of the great rabbis of Morocco from the times of the Geonim. And it was written by Rabbi Yosef ben Naim, alav shalom, who was from the city of Fez. And the story is told, I'm going to tell you the story as per the version of Rabbi Yosef ben Naim in his sefer. The story is told of a righteous girl named Sulika Hadjuel, who died al Kiddush Hashem in the year 1834. And this is how the story goes in the Sefer. Sulika was born in Tangier when she was only 14 years old. She had already become known for her extraordinary beauty, her vivacious spirit, and her crown of glory, her tzniut. One day, she had an argument with her mother. And as a result of that argument, her mother struck her. In order to quiet the situation, Sulika ran away from her mother and found herself in her neighbor's courtyard not far from the house. And that house was owned by an Arab named Walid el-Dina. When he came home from work, he caught sight of Sulika, saw her great beauty, and immediately set his eyes upon her to have her for himself. So he began to speak softly with her and used words of coercion and temptation in order to convince her to be with him. Sulika ignored his words, even though he presented her with gold and silver jewelry and all the luxuries of his home, including beautiful embroidered garments and silk outfits. He was hoping to tempt her to do his bidding and to renounce the Jewish faith in favor of the Islamic faith. Sulika, however, believed in Hashem, the God that without whom she felt she could not exist. So she told this man, "There is no one likened to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the true Navi is Moshe Rabbeinu. I will never replace my holy and pure religion with any other religion in the world." When the man heard this, he locked all the gates of the courtyard so she shouldn't escape. And he kept trying to tempt her. But soon he realized that she was never going to agree to his request. So he searched for an excuse to keep her there. What did he do? He spread a rumor that Sulika rejected her faith and had already accepted the Islamic religion and that he will never let her go. And he brought her case before a judge, and he produced written testimony from false witnesses that Sulika had indeed rejected the Jewish faith in their presence and accepted the faith of Muhammad. Sulika was distraught. She was constantly screaming for help from that house. But unfortunately, due to the poor and lowly situation among the Jews at that time, nobody was able to free her from her imprisoned life. They didn't have enough money. When this horrible Arab realized she would never do his bidding or convert, he had the Muslim city elders and the governor deliver a letter to the Sultan of Morocco at that time, who was a man by the name of Mulay Abd al-Rahman. And the letter said that Sulika converted to the Muslim faith, but that now she wants to revert to Judaism, and that was considered an Islamic transgression that was punishable by death. So they asked the Sultan himself to rule over this matter and deliver the correct judgment. The king's advisors suggested that the beautiful girl be brought before him in order for him to judge fairly. So Sulika was brought before the Sultan in chains. Now, even though this Sultan was known to be kind, honest, and compassionate towards the Jewish people, he felt that he could never negate his own Muslim faith. So he issued a decree that Sulika should be spoken to at great length. She should be enticed with soft words, and if that didn't work, they had permission to torture her. All this so she could change her mind and remain a Muslim. So Sulika was shown all the gold-filled rooms, the silver jewelry, the bracelets, the necklaces, the rings, the silk garments, the most beautiful flowers, the most expensive fur coats. Not only that, she was promised she's going to receive all this if she becomes the wife of the Sultan. Sulika was unimpressed. She didn't listen to the voices of people attempting her to coerce her into rejecting Yahadut. She stood firmly and strongly held to her emunah in Hashem. She did not defile herself or even think to succumb to the demands of the palace. All the days that she was imprisoned with the Sultan, his servants continued their attempts to coerce her with soft words, followed by harsh punishments. Even when she was beaten with clubs, she didn't change her mind and she remained faithful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So at this point, Sulika was turned over to the woman in charge of all the king's wives. And that woman began to torture her in ways that are unimaginable. But nothing they did changed her mind. Throughout the course of the imprisonment, Sulika never ate their food. How did she survive? There was a tzaddik named Rabbi Rafael Tzarfati, alav shalom. Now, because he was a recognized diplomat who represented the Jews to the king, and he was well respected in the king's court, he managed to secretly send Sulika kosher food. After many weeks of persuasion tactics, followed by torture, a Muslim judge decreed that Sulika should be put to death. Now, despite the broken hearts of the Jewish people, despite their tefillot to the Ribono Shel Olam, a decree was issued from Shamayim, and the Sultan agreed that Sulika be executed by severing her head with a sword. On the day of the execution, Sulika was dragged out to the public square on the busiest market day. Many Gentiles gathered there to watch this beautiful young woman be put to death. In her deep felt modesty, Sulika tied together the bottom of her dress so that in the event that she fell down after being executed and her body would convulse, her legs and private areas of her body would not be uncovered as she lay there in the dust of the earth. She did not want to lose the dignity of a bat melech. The executioner felt so bad for her that after he made a cut in her neck, he said to her, even now if you accept and listen to my voice and you become a Muslim, your wound can still be healed. Accept the Muslim faith. And Sulika responded to him saying, may God cut off your hands if you don't proceed to complete this execution, because I will never violate the faith of my teacher Moshe or reject my people. And with that, the executioner completed her execution in front of the multitudes of Gentiles, and she left this world with the words, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That day was a great day of sorrow for all the Jewish citizens of the city of Fez. Chachamim say that on that day, the clouds darkened the sky. Powerful sheets of rain stormed down on that city. A heavy fog covered the entire town. And believe it or not, the Muslims were not satisfied with the execution. They were unable to control the hatred for the Jewish people so much that these Rasha'im began to yell and to demand that Sulika's body be burned. It was then that Rabbi Rafael Tzarfati mustered up the courage to try and prevent Sulika's body from being burned. What did he do? He went out himself, together with a few of his servants, to the place of execution where Sulika's body lay. He threw to the ground hundreds of gold coins. The entire mob, as well as the noblemen who were there, were so busy collecting the coins from the floor that they didn't realize that Rabbi Rafael took Sulika's body and escaped with the body. Her body was taken to the Jewish quarter, where they held a massive public hesped for her in front of all the Jews there, men, women, and children. And the Rav announced the following words, blessed is Sulika, and blessed is her chelak in olam haba. How awful is this story? How awful. Who could withstand such a great test? Which teenager in our generation would have the strength to surpass such a nisayon at age 14? But just the mention of Sulika's name and every Jewish mouth speaks only praise of this woman, this girl. About her could be said, Rabot banot asuchail ve'at alit al kulana. Many daughters have amassed achievement, but you surpassed them all. May her memory protect us and the entire Am Yisrael. May her kedusha and sneut be a shining example of how much a bat melech is willing to go through just to be able to uphold the dignity and the kedusha of the daughter of the king. During that time, the Jews referred to her as Lalla Sulika. Lalla in Arabic means my lady or my mistress. It was considered an honorary title that generally described the Arab women of that generation. So one night, Sulika came to a Talmid Chacham in his dream, and she said to him, I ran away from the honorary titles and you calling me by this name? Imagine that. From that moment on, the Jews stopped calling Sulika Lala Sulika, and she just became Sulika. This tzadikah is buried in Fez. Chachamim say that if you're keen enough, you could smell the scent of mor emanating from her grave. Mor was the fragrant smell that was used in perfumes and in the incense offering during the times of the Bet HaMikdash. This is the power of a Jewish lady. This is the strength of a woman and the tzniut she was willing to uphold. May we be zeicha to experience the words of our chachamim come to life. Tichle shana v'kileloteha, tachel shana v'birchoteha. May this year, and along with it all the curses end, and may the new year begin with blessings. May we all have the zchut to have a ktiva v'chatima tova and a year of yeshuot and nechamot. Amen. Ken, yehi ratzon.
בוחן כליות ולב גלוי וידוע לפניך שאני רוצה לעבוד אותך. בוחן כליות ולב גלוי וידוע לפניך שאני רוצה לעבוד אותך. הנני עבד לעם קדוש על אדמת הקודש, אני מחויבת לפעול עמך.